I'm Chris Bizzaro, VP of Global Sales at Canoe, a US-based ad service technology company. Joining me today is the incomparable Jeff Eales, Director of System Strategy at Sky Media, the UK-based ad sales arm of Sky. Over the past year, Jeff and I have been totally geeking out, sharing best practices on advertising tech stack issues and solutions so that our ad sellers can deliver on the combined linear and non-linear campaigns bought by the ad buyers. There's a lot of moving parts to make sure all that consistently happens. So we've now got 29 minutes. So Jeff, we'll jump right in. Why don't we start with standardization in entertainment and ad IDs? Seems like a good place to start. If that metadata isn't right, the whole thing sort of falls apart. So you guys have had some frustrations here, some solutions. What are you seeing at Sky these days?
Oh, hi, Chris. Well, first of all, thanks for the introduction. Very kind. This is, I think, of all the panels I've done over the last 10 years, this is the one where there's just been us, and you're not even in the same room either. So it's all a little bit odd because, as those people that know me, they know I like to play to an audience. So I'm going to have to try and see how I get on with that one.
Well, look, I'll laugh where appropriate, Jeff. I'll put a laugh track in later. Maybe Alice, you can do that.
Absolutely, you can be like the football. We can have crowd coming in and out as we go. So look, we've got so this has been one of my mantras as those that know me for quite some time about standardization within linear, which goes to unique copy numbers, the metric time lengths, and calling things the same name, calling a rating, and an impression. And now we have this new world. We talked about this in December at the FTV conference there, where we had a section that was surprisingly, as I think I opened with, this is going to be surprisingly dull and incredibly important. Okay, and that kind of resonated, particularly, bless you, you came up and spoke to me afterwards and said, yeah, it was, this stuff is really, really important to get the tech stacks in line with each other so that we can kind of repair what's happened over the last 10 years, which is, we know, the fragmentation of television, which has been superb, that people can watch almost anything from anywhere. And for us, all that's happened is the monetization of that has meant that we've got a single linear campaign or a single burst of advertising in any major broadcast. It can now be 10 different campaigns, whether it's a digital campaign, whether it's a linear campaign, an AdSmart campaign, any type of addressable campaign, something on Sky Go mobile, or on a set-top box VOD. So, and you've got SVOD, BVOD, blah blah blah, and all of those. And what we've done is to build. All of us have pretty much built vertical stacks to make sure all of those work, but all of them have very little commonality. And so we're now trying to make life hopefully easier to sell and to buy. So we need to be able to add the measurement together. We need to be therefore we need to add the ratings together. We need to count time the same way. We need to know it's the same ad. Okay, so ad servers didn't. I mean, they do now, but they didn't even a year ago have a single place to put a single registration of what we refer to as a clock number. So the single identification, whether it's by audio matching, by video matching, by watermarking, by fingerprinting, is absolutely essential. That not only can you say, I know what that is, but you can then say, I know all the metadata connected to it, so that it just joins. Now that might sound really easy, but it just isn't. Yeah, it just isn't, because all of our systems go at different speeds, all the roadmaps are at different paces, and everybody calls, the linear and non-linear world call the same thing. It's a lot like pavement and sidewalk. Yeah, and And we know that the UK and the US are separated by a common language, okay, and in this instance, exactly the same thing is occurring. So we need to make sure that duration, time length, and copy length are all the same thing. And when it's 30 seconds, it is 30 seconds. And when we count, in linear, we count in what we call 30-second equivalents. So if you sell a 30-second block of time, that's one. In impressions, you sell it for the number of ads that go out. So if you sell 3 10s in a 30, that's 3. Okay, but that's still one view. So that's still one view. So if you're measuring it, it's one view, but if you're transmitting it, it potentially is something different. And if you're going to put those two things together, one has got to be equal to one. So that's kind of where that's where we're going. It's all part of the NBCU. When Comcast purchased Sky, we got some great people, some great technology across, and some great ideas. And C-Flight is a major step forward for trying to working out extended reach of linear and non-linear. And therefore, of course, if you know the value of non-linear to a linear schedule, then why wouldn't you then try to purchase those together? So the US are working on one platform, and the UK, we're working on one platform. We refer to it as one campaign because we have an ocean between us. things get, it is like, so we're taking the C-Flight methodology, we're taking the thoughts that you guys give us from how our ad serving works, and trying and succeeding to a great extent. We're trying to create a single buy that enables our buyers and sellers to, if you like, transfer between audience delivery, and that's kind of where we're going. And clock number is the kind of the bread and butter, is the first part of the foundation of how you identify two things that are the same, that are on two separate systems that need to be added together.
So is that an entertainment asset ID, Jeff, or that's an ad asset ID, or both? How do you, because really having both consistent cross-platform is key to this equation.
So in the UK, we're quite fortunate in as much that we have a single body called Clearcast that clears all the ads for the UK, and that gives us the opportunity to have a single number. So every broadcaster in the UK uses a single copy number that has exactly the same syntax and exactly the same number for each particular piece of copy, whether ITV, Channel 4 or Sky transmit it, and that's how we report it. So that was a good place to start. There is the international ad ID that I think I'm certainly interested in looking at and being a part of, should that gain any particular momentum, which then would go to the IDA code or the codes that we have for content. And it seems to me that having a unique ID for content and a unique ID for commercials, if they were global, would be almost we almost can't do without it. Yeah, we're kind of getting by, particularly if we end up with or we're looking to have global clients and global campaigns, then it would make a great deal of sense to have those named again individually or uniquely. So and
even within the states, we have ad ID, and it's supported by all the advertising agencies and by the client representation groups. And certainly there's been good adoption of that over the last 10 years, but one would think it'd be at 100% adoption, and we're not. So there really does, different folks are calling for, that adoption, and always have. But like you say, Jeff, now more than ever, if we're doing an ad campaign across the pond, it just starts to become a nightmare if we can't even adopt on an ad ID.
Yeah, but look here, never has the 90-10 rule applied more. Okay, the 90 or the 85 or whatever of linear is now that works very well. But all the other stuff, the 5% or whatever that happens to be, causes considerably more operational difficulty than the whole of the rest put together. So you kind of tip it round, and there's no question that the operation, all the new operations, are surprisingly misaligned because they were, because they were on technologies that weren't necessarily built to be aligned. Right. So it's just coming around and tidying up and doing that housekeeping to say, right, okay, so how do we count? How do we? And never has the analogies of trying to change the wheel of a Formula One car without coming to a pit stop ever been better, because we can't stop. So we have to do this while we're moving. But we are making good headway. We have back in December, we were talking about this company we have called TV Beat, who is effectively building a staging area for us to enable us to send data into it, from whether it's from set-top boxes or whether it's from ad servers. There's quite a bit of what should we say? There's more data than you need, from some of these systems. Sure. And well, you know this better than I do, doing what you guys do. And so a lot of the time now you actually need to say, okay, so this is the real good stuff. This is the bit where it confirms the impression, it confirms the ID, it confirms the placement ID, all of those things very nicely put in a regularized file that's effectively updated every day. Yeah. Now that sounds like good old-fashioned linear, but it's not bad. So what we're taking is what we think are the good bits of linear and the great bits of non-linear, and putting the two together and creating a currency that hopefully, or creating not a currency, creating ability to buy and trade on a daily basis. Yeah, which in the UK, linear is guaranteed 8 days after transmission. Okay,
which I think leads to forecasting, Jeff, right? Is sort of the so okay, we've got to do the metadata correct and the entertainment ID and the ad ID. And then it sounds like with the TV Beat guys, now that you've got it centralized within your house, is the first use of that, is that in forecasting? Is that really true? Where we start from? Absolutely.
So if you can then forecast and you have a good and stable forecast, and we all know that forecasting can be great, from that point of view, you can then decide, or an engine can decide whether or not today is a non-linear day and tomorrow is a linear day, or today we merge the two and we start thinking about, not surprisingly, we know that 16 to 34s are going towards the non-linear side from linear. So of course the system needs to, if it knew that, and we do know that, why can't we build a system that takes that into account and enables us to intelligently, effectively fish where the fish are? Yeah. So yes, but you can again only fish where the fish are if you don't want to be analogy man. So long as you know what that they're in the same ocean. Yeah, they're in the same pond. So at least you know how you're gonna do it. So we're working very hard with. We found something like 7 different metrics embedded within the system, within a 75. We're going for what we believe is the true kind of high bar to 75% or 100% viewed. We use 75% viewed in AdSmart. We're working towards a 100% viewed, so we can say that ad was viewed absolutely and was, well, we call it a view, was played on a device in a household. Right. Okay, and we can, and the only issue we've now got is that we need to take Holmes impressions and add them to Nielsen or Barb like ratings, which is of course individuals, and that is effectively what C-Flight does by taking impressions and making them individuals, yeah, through the methodology that they've come up with, that enables us to actually have a single view of a deliverable of an audience. And by doing that, say we can then potentially forecast. And if we can forecast, and we're forecasting the same thing, and we know that there's a total, yes, we can start to play tunes.
Which we found, coming from our traditional linear background, being a bunch of cable guys, well, we always just assumed that's the way it was. You need to understand the complete picture. And early on, 8-9 years ago, working with the digital ad servers coming into the space, we found their forecasting was just a lot different. It was on a call for an impression on an impression by impression basis. Hey, I need an ad, give me an ad. Hey, I need an ad, give me an ad. There wasn't necessarily the idea of what we understood from the traditional linear space of what's the total picture? I'm doing this in context of what? And we found that once we sort of brought that mentality to the freewheels and the Google ad servers, playing out on set-top box VOD here in the States, that's when our forecasting got so much better, to be able to understand it in the total picture, like we've traditionally done in linear for years.
Absolutely. And it does seem to me that I'm with you, that the non-linear tends to be bottom up, tends to be what do I do? No, what do I do now? And linear tends to be top down, tends to be, yeah, it says, right, okay, we have all this, yeah, we have all this demand, we have all this supply. How do we put those two together intelligently every day and reset it every day? Yeah. And you're absolutely right. That is the protocol. So that's something that we've learned in linear that we need to start applying to non-linear with those absolutely those forecasting tools. But hey, and we're going to say it time and time again, this is fun because it's actually really quite hard, and it's not entirely obvious some days that what you've got is what you've thought you had. Okay, and so there is a measure of a real understanding as to how these new systems work, literally end to end, and when you pull a particular lever, then what actually does happen. They're almost so technical. You need you need a computer to work it out. Okay.
Well, good thing we got those now. That's good.
Yes, absolutely. So, but you need to know that when you hit a button, that is going to happen. Yeah. And there have been occasions where, supposedly the expert in the world on pressing buttons will tell you press this button and a rabbit pops up, and actually it doesn't. Something else happens because it was changed. So it is a very complex world. You get tremendous satisfaction out of getting some wins, and we got some real wins. I mean, a real win for us was about a year ago. A year ago, we were not in a position where we could, where every single ad on the ad server had a specific regularized copy number on it. I mean, but we worked hard with Freewheel. We worked hard with all of the TV Beat guys and the Sky teams. And even though it might seem, for some people, what really, really, this is what we were saying. It's very boring, but very important. Yeah, it's very important that we built a system that every single day we get a copy number on everything, on every placement. Well, that is, that was quite a success. So that's a real stake in the ground for us to be able to say that if we've got that, we can then start truly pushing it towards the linear outputs, and so we actually know where we are. So that was a big kind of a big moment for us.
Yeah, and obviously where Canoe comes in is on the well, that's all wonderful, but the day in and day out of there's 20-30 things that we monitor every day. And when one of those things falls on the floor, that could throw off everything else downhill. So we have fun with that. We do geek out of, hey, a bunch of engineers that say, hey, we found the problem. This didn't get through, or this was named wrong. And, lo and behold, you can turn up 2 million impressions that would have made you underdeliver somewhere else. It's amazing the residual effects that can happen from, one fat finger or one server timing out, or, some really odd things that you think should just work, and everyone thinks they just work. But we all know things just don't necessarily work day in and day out.
I think if anybody would be interested in watching us, Chris, when we get back to normal, well, we could perhaps let FTV give us an hour to go through all the outliers. Yeah,
that's right.
It is the outliers are a serious. I remember we had a meeting about 3 or 4 months ago where we started talking about outliers, and we had about an hour in, and 3 hours later we got halfway through the list. And I mean, because they are, and you're dead right. It's again, analogies is just like a small leak. There's a kind of a small leak here and there, and individually they're not important, except for the fact that when you get up, the carpet is soaking, yeah, and you think, well, that's now a problem. So we've got to fix those, and so going through each one of those, and it's entirely due to the fact that there are so many different types of transcoded commercials, so many different types of devices, so many different updates at different places. Right. All of those things cause the end-to-end system, which is considerable, potentially to go wrong, as you say. And then suddenly, one of the pipes gets blocked, or one of the pipes doesn't work, and it's not always obvious. Yeah. That's whose fault it is. Who then takes not necessarily the blame, because if you're not careful, you get 2 technicians in a room, and they both believe there's a problem, and neither of them think it's theirs.
Well, and sometimes it's innocent enough that someone you just mentioned, someone at some pay TV operator innocently enough doesn't update, and it's perfectly updating his system as he knows it. But doesn't realize that totally messed up the complete ad stack down the line. Yes. So a lot of times, it's just education within the organizations of, hey, you can't do that. That causes problems.
Yes, indeed, and so that should we say that neatly segues into potentially working out and understanding what invalid traffic is. Yeah. Okay, because that's now quite a hot, it's a hot topic amongst us all. To understand and to decide what actually is invalid traffic, how you would potentially surface that to people. And
can you explain that problem as you see it? Because we're spending a huge amount of time in the last year and a half on this issue. What explain to folks exactly what you see and why it's an issue.
Well, even if you just talk about the separation between ad servers, a publisher ad server, and a agency ad server. Okay, so even if you've got, say, DFA and DFP, right? My understanding is, and it might be that again I'm massively oversimplifying this, but it would be if the ad is not sitting on a broadcaster server, and in broadcasting, most certainly in premium broadcasting, we always have the ad on our side. Right. Okay, because we have broadcast licenses that really don't allow us to broadcast in an ad that is not on site, or that we can't completely ring fence, so we know it is the exact ad that was cleared and has all the metadata about its regulation. Okay, so in a world where, as say, the ad sitting on an ad server in Mumbai, all right, that you're calling, that call says go get me, and doesn't get there. Yeah. Now, is that in those terms? We're still not. I'm still not. I think we're all not sure that when you say, "Hi, are you there?" and someone says, "Yes, I am," did that actually happen? Yeah. Did that actually occur? And of course, if I was an agency, I'd like to, I'd want to know. I want to know that what you're charging me for that actually played.
Sure.
But there's still, because of Wi-Fi, because of just the business of serving millions of ads in millions of seconds. Sorry, in a millisecond. Yeah. It's guess what? Some things don't happen. Okay, and it's the definition of, did it actually happen? Did it actually play? That I think we've got to sort out, because not entirely surprisingly, it might be that the buyer, the seller wants the number as high as possible, and the buyer, you could argue, just wants it right. Yeah, the buyer just wants to know it's right, and I think it's a subject that we need to nail down. Certainly, I know it's being discussed and being implemented kind of around the world, but I think there's still a little way we need to go to just absolutely nail it down.
Yeah. Well, certainly when the problem has existed in digital for years, but when it was a 50-cent CPM on a banner ad, people looked the other way. When it's a $25 CPM on a premium video, well, then that really starts to add up quickly for folks. What we found at Canoe in the States, and what we're actively cleaning up, is when those ads come into our system, in our closed MSO system, like you said, right, on the premium side, everything's a closed system. We actually hash the device ID and the household ID so that these outside third-party services don't get access to our MSO's household ID and device ID. But what that happens on those ad verification systems, that looks like fraud to them, because we're just hashing and descrambling the IP address. So they think it's some server farm in Mumbai, when it's actually Comcast, Cox, or Charter, and it's quality stuff. So we actually have to spend a whole bunch of time, as I mentioned, managing proactively to the double verifies and the extreme reaches and the moats, telling them, hey, when you see IP address, 1.-77652, it's okay, it's valid, it's not invalid. And those IP addresses change all the time. So it's very manual, but it does somewhat solve that issue. Well, Jeff, surprise, surprise, we've already burnt through our half hour. As we all know, we could do part 2, part 3, part 4 if we wanted to subject people to it. We've got a couple more minutes here. Any more burning topics on your end? How are things going on the addressable side? You guys have been in that for years. How's that going? Are you working across the pond with the states in terms of addressable yet? What's the status of that these days?
Well, there's no question that the first pretty much the first thing we did was a chart of what we do, chart of what NBCU does, and we've definitely worked for the last 18 months or so on picking out all the good bits, and also making sure that AdSmart in the UK is the same as AdSmart in the US, and that's again not particularly easy. I think the headlines for the future are again trying to get standardization of a single platform if we can. Global deals again are a really hot topic at the moment. But just kind of getting on and making, just as you were saying, get data out quicker, audited, trusted, and standardized is kind of where we're all going. And AdSmart is flying. I mean, particularly we've just recently had enabled a number of companies to have £10,000 worth of AdSmart airtime for free, effectively, under the to help start up some of the new businesses, and that's gone incredibly well. That there's no question that AdSmart has a place for large companies, but also the small business, that would love to be on TV. There's no question, it just hits that spot, and so the list of companies that have benefited from AdSmart over the last 4 or 5 years has been fantastic. So yes, it just continues to fly. It's absolutely, there are things to come which we're thinking about now. We can't say anything about them, but there are. I know it sounds, dangling a carrot. There are. Watch the space. Yeah.
Well, it is the future of TV global,
yeah,
right? So there you go. There's our
things,
future
there
project.
are things coming. There are things absolutely on the horizon. And actually, would you believe, in about 2 weeks' time, I will have been at Sky for 15 years.
Wow.
And honestly, if you track through what I've been involved with Sky over those 15 years, you just go, wow. It's never ceases, never ceases in development of TV and TV advertising. Never ceases to be good fun, a real challenge, and gets my 62-year-old brain out and up every morning.
Well, Jeff, hopefully soon we get to chat more over a pint once all this crazy pandemic stuff is over. Thank you as always. Always a pleasure. Hope that was useful to everyone sitting at home on your computers. And
yes.
Enjoy the rest of the event. Thanks, Jeff.
Cheers. Thanks, Chris. All the best. Bye.